What's going on, y'all? Bud Elliott here. This is the Nolecast, and just checking in with the little Florida State at Duke Friday night preview, which is, not gonna lie, Friday night games kind of hate them. To me, that should be reserved for high school football. But maybe you want to tell me Florida State is being played like a high school team this year at times, and I get it. That's fair. That's fair. So Florida State kicks off 7 o'clock Eastern on ESPN at Duke. A great game, but a game that I think we will all watch because it is a winnable game for these Noles. Yes, these 1-5 Seminoles have a chance to win this ball game. Spread's currently 3. Over under is 42 and a half, 43 ish. So, basically implied score here is quick math, like 23-20. Call it. Okay. Fair enough. I have watched a lot of Duke this year. Duke under was one of my better season win total bets. It is one of these season total bets that I'm going to lose almost certainly. And yet, of the ones that I uh, fired on and will probably lose, from an analytics standpoint, it is the one that I definitely would fire again watching this. And I'm not here to tell you that Duke is a bad football team by any measure. I don't think they're bad, but they're also uh, okay, but also quite lucky, both in terms of bounces, turnovers, but also in terms of who they faced, when they faced them, and how some of those situations broke down in those games. And look, to Duke's credit, and they should get a lot of credit here. They're 5-1 after a massive turnover season. Um, you look at this, they stayed in ball games. They stayed in and they found a way to fight and win. I don't know if you guys are watching the baseball tonight at all, but good God, these football games have sucked. Like Marshall, Georgia State, awful, and BC, Virginia Tech, also similarly terrible. So a lot of focus here on the Knowles. You want to go offense or defense first? I think what we should first do is talk about our first sponsor, Legendary Team. Chad does an awesome job. 844 FSU Loan, 844 FSU Loan is the number to call if you want to get hooked up with an awesome home loan. I've done it twice. About 600 Nolecast listeners have as well. So can they all be wrong? We always say, sure, I guess so, but probably not. Probably not. That's a pretty good testimonial. 844 FSU Loan is the number to call. I know Chad will be sweating that out in our Nolecast group chat for sure, as will I. And this is what I'm actually kind of excited to watch because I'm excited to see all the changes that the Noles are making for this game. A little bit more of a youth movement, if you will. We talked about this on the Monday show, and I'm excited to watch and see kind of how all that plays out if we're able to. So, all right. Duke comes in. Here's a general profile of what Duke is. Think like a poor man's SMU in its first season, or something slightly worse than that. Duke is going to be hyper aggressive on both sides of the football, most notably on the defensive side of the football, whereas a Manny Diaz led defense. I'll get into that. I think we're pretty familiar with him. He was at Miami for a while, thought did a decent job. Miami kind of ran him out of town. I mean, you could say it's unfair, but when guys get like a $10 million buyout, I don't feel that bad for him, to be honest. Although if it's your dream job, there is some kind of little letdown there, right? Like that part kind of sucks. Um, then on the other side, you have a really, really aggressive spread offense that can't really, to this point in the year, run the ball, has a quarterback who can't run. So that's a change, right? SMU had Jennings when FSU played them, whereas SMU did not have Jennings for most of the year. They were running Preston Stone, who was rather immobile. Manny took a couple guys from that SMU staff to come over here. So it's going to be very up tempo and very, very aggressive when possible. A team that throws the ball around a ton. Does it throw it effectively? I guess that kind of depends on your definition. They're not real explosive. They catch the ball. They throw a lot of short passes, a lot of screens. Part of that is because they really struggle to pass protect in obvious passing downs. So this could, in theory, be a bit of like the immovable force meets the irresistible force meets the immovable object, right? Because Florida State's defense on the, as people will call it, the third and fuller, has been very quite good at giving up successful plays in obvious passing downs, which sucks. But Duke has not been very good in that area, and I think part of it is because they don't pass protect all that well. So let's start there. Uh, Also, how did Duke get to 5-1? I'm not saying that they're like a fraudulent 5-1, but of the teams that only have one loss right now, I think they are the worst by like a huge margin. Okay. So they played Elon and they won. Hold on. Where's their schedule go? Here you go. Oh, that's Duke's basketball, right? Because when you Google Duke's schedule, you have to type in football schedule because otherwise you get basketball first, academics second, and football third, unfortunately. So if you look at this, and I got their game grades pulled up here as well. Um, so Duke beat Elon 26-3 in a pretty ugly game to start the year, whatever. It's a first game under new staff, FCS school, who cares? Then Duke went on the road and won an overtime game against Northwestern, in which Northwestern was starting, I think who we pretty clearly understand now was the wrong quarterback. They were starting Mike Wright, who was like the former Mississippi State backup, instead of starting the guy now, Jack Lausch, who is pretty good and put like 45 or however many points he put the other night on the Maryland Terrapins in a road win for those Wildcats. So Duke kind of got the wrong quarterback there. I thought they luck boxed their way into this pretty hard with some turnovers and stuff. And watching the game, I thought Northwestern was probably the right side, but Duke got the victory. Then Duke played, I believe, the UConn backup, right? Did they get Evers? So Evers, Evers did play, but it's still UConn, and they won 26-21. So if you're keeping score here, Duke so far on the year 2-0 in single score wins. As we've said for a long time on this show, and I think it's generally now accepted. It wasn't always, right? And that's okay. We say things sometimes that aren't always accepted early, and sometimes they're flat wrong, and sometimes we're just way ahead of the curve. But I think everybody now understands winning close games is a lot more luck than skill, and so Duke 2-0 in those. Then they blast a Middle Tennessee State team, which La Tech blasted by about a similar margin, 45-17. So Middle Tennessee is legitimately one of the bottom 10 teams in the country. Then they face a UNC team, which was on complete quit watch, got up 20-0, and Duke storms all the way back to win 20-1. So again, or 21-20. So if you're scoring at home, that's 3-0 in single score games. And then they lose at Georgia Tech 24-14 in a game where I thought they fought really hard. I also thought if you actually watched this ball game, the early pass interference that Duke got in its favor right before the half kind of swung this game because Tech was up. They're up 2 scores, maybe 2 touchdowns entering the half, and then that, to me, that really changed things a little bit. So that was curious. From a schedule strength standpoint, I mean, UConn would be the worst team FSU's faced so far. Middle Tennessee would as well. UNC would as well. Elon would as well. And I do think that the Mike Wright-led version of Northwestern, which is what Duke faced, would also be the worst team that FSU has faced. So while you might not look at FSU's schedule so far as a murderer's row, they have yet to play any like really, really, really bad teams. Whereas Duke has, quite a few of those on their schedule. And the thing is, Duke's just not a terrible team. They're just okay. And in 2024, that may be plenty enough to beat these Noles. We will have to see. But I did want to point that out. Like, you look at the 5-0 record or 5-1 record, you look at the 1-5 record. If you swap these team schedules, what's the record? Duke's probably like, I don't know, 2-4, and FSU is like 4-2 because they've played like jerks at times. I mean, to be frank, like just shooting themselves in the foot. I don't know. They both lost to Georgia Tech by close margins. Wait, the Yankees lost on a walk-off? Damn, I turned that one. I apologize. So, that's probably good that I don't have that on because I would otherwise be a little bit distracted there. I will star a couple of these comments that aren't just, I don't want to call them insane guys, but just a couple of these comments that are just kind of normal. I'll take them in due time. So Duke runs the SMU stuff on both sides. I already really kind of discussed that a little bit. Let's talk about Florida State's offense against Duke's defense. This is, if you want to go by the numbers, probably the biggest mismatch in this game and in Duke's favor, at least according to the numbers this year. So Duke's going to operate mostly out of a 4-down look. They are going to blitz a lot. They're going to bring it from all different areas. This is certainly a situation in which I think you have to be worried if you're a Nole, because so far this year, I can name you some opponents who have done similar things, including Cal, which you beat, but Georgia Tech, SMU did that an absolute ton. Clemson a little bit. I would expect Duke to be attacking those A gaps with your with your new guard tandem, Andre Otto and Jalen early and often, right? To see how many free runners you can get, to see if you can hit some of these run plays from the backside. If I'm Duke, if I'm looking at the changes that Florida State has made to the lineup, I think it's very obvious they're more athletic now at guard than they were with Keandre Jones and Ferguson overall, although perhaps a little bit less sized up. So you'll have to see how that plays out. But Duke is going to try to get free runners at the quarterback and free runners to try to get tackles for loss. They are one of the leading teams in terms of tackles for loss. Now, granted, that's not opponent adjusted. If it was, they wouldn't be quite so high because a lot of teams who play UNC and Middle and Elon and UConn and Northwestern, a lot of those teams also generate a lot of tackles for loss. But Duke stylistically, they are hunting tackles for loss. I think their idea is like, hey, if we get you behind the sticks, we can get off the field. And if you hit an explosive play on us, cool, we're going to get the ball back to our offense in a fast manner. Because recall, the offense is a tempo offense. It wants to go fast. Now, here's the thing. Ordinarily, I would say that's an extremely complementary style of football. Because if you have a really good tempo offense, I want to play 14 possessions. I don't want to play 8. I don't want to play 10. Okay. I want to play a bunch of possessions. Here's the problem. And we'll get back to this further in a second, but Duke's offense is not that good. So if you are able to have a couple ugly drives, but also a couple of explosive drives, okay, and explosive drives are defined generally as drives where the average play is more than 10 yards. So, your yards per play over 10 on the drive, we classify that in Stat Nerd Kingdom as an explosive drive. All right. So you think about that. What does it mean? Well, for the most part, it means that you are probably going to have some fits and starts in this game. And that's cool because you know what? You've had that a lot this year. How many teams have truly allowed you to drive on them all season? Not many, right? You watch this and you're like, okay, if you get 12 possessions, can you get 3 touchdowns off them and maybe a field goal or 2? And then maybe you have like some ugliness in the other ones and you punt the ball well, hopefully, and just avoid some of the turnovers. Much easier said than done, clearly. But you do have Brock Glenn, who's played really well. I think Duke has good corners. I think they are a little bit more vulnerable at linebacker and safety. Their defensive line, again, they blitz a ton. Part of that, I think, is just because they would blitz a ton even if they had awesome D linemen. But I don't think these D linemen are, necessarily all awesome. Now, your offensive line so far this year probably sets up to make them look like they are indeed all awesome. But I'm not really convinced that all of them are truly awesome defensive linemen. So we'll see on that. I think this is a really important game for the tight ends to play well for the Noles, and those young tight ends on the road have got to communicate with Brock Glenn. That scares the heck out of me, to be frank. They got to have good congruity. If your business needs congruity, and it does, you need to hit up Matt Lewis. Matt Lewis, congruityhr.com/Noles, congruityhr.com/Noles. Payroll, HR solutions, whatever you might need. I think Congruity truly could help your business. I think we've had 11 or 12 Nolecast listener businesses now or adjacent decide to make the jump and go with Congruity. Congruity really crushes it for us. We think they'll crush it for you. We love using them here at the Nolecast. All right. So can your receivers win some one-on-ones against these blitz looks? Can your receivers and quarterback be on the same page against some of these blitz looks? Or does it just not matter a whole lot, right? Are you able to scheme up and dial up enough shot stuff to where that's just what you're going to do? All right. And maybe that means more QB run. Maybe that means more whatever. Maybe that means more kind of hard play action type stuff with max protect. I don't know. Well, even if I did, I wouldn't give it away on the Nolecast because I have more respect for those guys than that. But I mean, to me, I think like the obvious solution that the teams who have played them well is like some of the max protect stuff, unless you got a really veteran quarterback, and they'll face some down the stretch here who will probably dice them, to be honest. But that's not you unless Brock Glenn's just going to play out of his skull again like he did against Clemson, and then we'll see if the guys can catch the football. Maybe they can, maybe they cannot. Anyway, my point here is I don't really think that you want to trust Brock and the receivers to make all the hot reads all the time. I think you probably, I mean, obviously you need to have some of that, but your screen game, your max protect play action game, the stuff that you think could pop. Can you pop some? Can you catch Duke in a bad blitz look for them to where you're able to hit those explosive plays? Maybe you pop runs against it, right? I mean, if they're shooting gaps all the time, you're going to have some tackles for loss against you, but you're also probably going to have what? Probably going to hit some explosive runs, I would think. So this absolutely has the chance to be the most explosive football game that the Noles have had all season. So I'm very curious to see if they can keep that up in this game, or at least do what some of the opponents have done against Duke. Oh, also, I should know, I think Duke tackles well. If you watch them, they leave a lot of their guys in one-on-one situations, and they do get the ball on the ground pretty well. Blue Chicken says, Luke going to play. I don't understand some of the games they play with these quarterbacks. I don't really know what you mean by games. I mean, like, I don't know, like, just because somebody expects to play doesn't necessarily mean that, like, that was actually in the plans. And, like, Brock Glenn had a really damn good game. If they catch the ball, like, he's probably rocketing to, like, the top of the team's hope that he jumps in the transfer portal list, honestly. I don't know anybody who works in college football who watched that game, because a couple of people who listen to Cover 3, like, they're like, oh, damn, dude, you're right. Like, this kid, that shit was really good against Clemson. Apologies for the S word there if we got the young ears in the car. I like Luke, but if Brock's playing like that, you got to roll with Brock. I mean, like, you are trying to do a youth movement / win some games, and that was better. Like, if Brock had played anywhere close to that in prior games and had been the guy, which of course he didn't look like that in practice a whole lot. So I don't blame Norvell for not knowing that was going to happen. I do think that, like, there's some blame to be given for not at least trying something when DJ was playing that poorly. But if Brock's going to play like that and it's anywhere near repeatable, you got one, a good one. So let's be happy about that. Shoot. Okay, so big week for explosive runs. Got to avoid negatives or try to offset them with explosive plays. Again, it's easier said than done, but that's clearly the strategy. If it's all negatives and no explosives, you lose the ball game. Might as well just not even travel. Let's do the other side of this now. Okay, because obviously I want to make this digestible. About 35 minutes is probably a good length for these. I don't know, somewhere in there. I try to script it out 25 because I know with the chat questions and other stuff, it'll probably be a little bit longer. So you look at this. If you're not going to the game, you know where you should probably watch from? Charlie Park Rooftop Restaurant. That's right. Charlie Park, proud supporter of the Nolecast for the Table Restaurant Group. Matt Lewis, come on, man. Mixing up my Matts. Matt Thompson does an awesome job sponsoring the Nolecast. Great spot. Brunch, drinks, whatever you want. Hit them up. Definitely get a reservation. CharlieParkRooftop.com. That's CharlieParkRooftop.com. Graduation's coming up, especially if you're a December graduate. That's something to start looking at now. Book your table. I'm being serious here. We have not had a single person come back and like, yeah, Charlie Park sucked. Not a one. Everybody we've sent there said, dude, good rec, man. Appreciate it. So I like hearing that because that's what I expect to hear dealing with Matt for 10 years now. Like, everybody knows Madso crushes and Township crushes, and they like Charlie Park too. So it's another good concept. Let's talk Duke's offense against Florida State's defense, because this is the one where I think we know more of what we're going to get, and yet it's still a little bit scary. I will say this. If Brock Glenn plays anywhere close to how he played against Clemson, and if Duke's offense and Florida State's defense continue to play how they have played in recent weeks, Florida State's going to win the ballgame. Because Duke's offense has been kind of trash, to be frank. It's very up-tempo. They have some playmakers on the outside, a lot of like yards after the catch type guys. Malik Murphy, the transfer from Texas, has been okay. I think he's probably been what they hoped that he would have been. He does have a big arm. He is not a runner by any stretch of the imagination. They will run a lot of the RPO stuff. That RPO, of course, is handed off or throw, not the QB running around, just for those of y'all who might not know. This is an interesting matchup. This is a game where Duke's not that big. They're not a great red zone team, probably because they don't run the ball well and they don't really have a quarterback run threat and they don't have, tremendous size at receiver. I'm telling you guys, I do think this is a game where the typical Adam Fuller plan of not allowing explosives, it should work. This is a game where if you can bow up in the red zone, stand strong in the red zone and in a scoring area, you can limit Duke to some field goals or maybe you get some fourth down stops. To me, that is largely the key to this game. Denying some explosives, making Duke kick field goals or, try difficult fourth down shots. That's really what this is going to come down to because I do think that your defensive line, if it plays well, and at times this year it really has, if your defensive line plays well, you can whip this offensive line. This offensive line is like close to Cal bad. And you guys remember what FSU did to them. It was pretty much they destroyed them. Now, here's some of my concerns. One, are you going to get an all-in effort from everybody on defense again? I know I hate saying that, but like that's an actual concern of mine with this football team now. Two, because the offense they run is very, very similar to what SMU runs, how much of what SMU was able to do is Duke just going to be able to copy? Because my guess is a lot. And if you recall, like Florida State did a pretty good job on a down-to-down basis against SMU, right? Like maybe I'm crazy, but like when I watched, it's like, okay, most of these defensive plays are okay. But the bad ones were like exceptionally bad. Just nobody covering a tight end or guys running wide open. It felt like it was some was like scheme and tempo based. If Duke gets that, I don't know that you can go score 28 or 30 against Duke's defense to really make up for that, personally. I don't know. Maybe they will. I'm not entirely sure that they can do so. Duke's got a lot of speed. They don't have a lot of size. Tackling in this one's going to be pretty important. Making sure that you have good communication is going to be pretty important here. But they really run a lot of that SMU stuff. It's very similar. So you're going to face that a lot. Can FSU's kind of youth movement on defense, can it bow up and play well? I think it probably can as long as they get off to a decent start. But I don't think this is a spot where like Duke is or Florida State are going to run away with this super early. They could. There's no doubt. And if somebody runs away with it super early, it's probably Duke because Florida State just no-shows the game. I mean, to me, this game probably matters more to Duke than it does to FSU. I can't imagine anybody at Duke is checked out on the season. I'd be shocked if there weren't a couple of FSU guys who weren't checked out. But I think the hope is that everybody who's playing, at least like the guys who are still playing, are not checked out, or at least they better not be, right? Because that would suck. What else do we need here? Going through my notes. Got to handle the tempo. Quarterback cannot run. Must win red zone roulette. Duke. That's all the other stuff on there that we already talked about. All right, a couple questions here. At work and can't listen live. Anthony, appreciate you working, man. Has Byers played so well at right tackle that he'd be your choice, or would you have moved him aside where he was a better chance of being legendary instead of Jalen Early? I think I would want to leave Byers at right tackle. I think when healthy, Byers to me has not been a huge problem at right tackle. He's not amazing, but I don't think he's been like one of your 5 or 6 most problematic players, at least when healthy this season. So a couple people saying they're going to lose regardless. Sure. Yeah, they might. Who knows? I guess. Florida State's never lost to Duke. Yeah, well, that's a streak. You got to see if they can keep that going. Are the defensive tackles for FSU a mismatch with Duke center and guards? Yeah, I actually think that they are. I'm glad you guys brought this up. This is a spot where Farmer and Jackson can make themselves some real money. Think about who they've played so far. Like Georgia Tech does not have amazing D tackles. I mean, I don't know if I'd call FSU's amazing, but they're certainly better than what Tech has. North Carolina does not. Middle Tennessee certainly not. UConn, no. Northwestern's got one guy, but like not two. There is a real chance they can beat them up. Yeah. And cause some problems inside. Will they play good team defense? Man, I don't know. But if they get like a good effort, if they get like a Cal level effort out of the defense, or um, shoot, if you give me like the Georgia Tech game effort from the defense, but you're a little bit better in the red zone, I think that could get it done for you too. So I appreciate everybody watching. This was a really fun one to do. I will join you with the instant probably right after the game. If not, I'll just do it early Saturday morning. Just depends on what I want to do, how late it's going to go. I mean, this could have a million incompletions in it. Who knows? Or maybe both teams run the ball a whole lot and it goes fast. And I don't really love doing the instants at midnight because I feel like it's kind of crappy analysis, to be honest. But anyway, I appreciate it, guys. I'm going to go Noles 24, Blue Devils 23. FSU forces Duke to kick just enough field goals for the Noles to get the win. I can't believe I'm predicting a 1-5 team to beat a 5-1 team, but here we are. I actually think they got a shot. So we will see you tomorrow night. Enjoyed this. Everybody be well. See you next time.